The 1968 Detroit Lions won 4 games, while the 1969 team won 9 games. Yet it was still a frustrating season. Dropped passes were part of the problem, but key injuries along with misplays and mental mistakes also contributed to a stinging Week 1 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who only won 1 game during the entire season. The Lions were favored to win by 6 points over a Steelers team that had only won 2 games in 1968 and had the NFL's worst defense in points allowed that season. Number 24, Mike Weger, let this Dick Shiner pass through his hands and into Roy Jefferson, which was a key play in this closely played game in which Errol Mann missed a 35-yard field goal attempt that would have given the Lions a 7-point lead late in the fourth quarter. However, a 6-yard Warren Bankston touchdown run and successful point after try burst the Lions' bubble. The Lions' woeful 2.7 yards per rushing attempt was a key reason for their stunning defeat, and it was foreshadowing for future anemic rushing displays. In Week 3 at Cleveland, 82,933 fans witnessed magnificent twirling and Lions defensive play. Back-to-back NFL rushing champion Leroy Kelly was stymied. The incredibly athletic Lem Barney intercepted this misguided Bill Nelson pass. Barney, however, extolled the virtue that it is better to give than to receive. Future Hall of Famer Dick LeBeau picked off another Nelson aerial and was promptly tackled by a diving Paul Warfield, who still ended up having a fine day with 7 catches for 106 yards and a touchdown. And on offense, Bill Munson dropped back 10 yards and zeroed in on Earl McCulloch, who tiptoed through a sitting marching band. Munson arched a beautiful 26-yard pass to John Wright in an impressive 28-21 win. The Lions head coach was third-year man Joe Schmidt. He rose to that perch after only 2 years of retiring as a Lions player. He had 9 consecutive seasons as either a first or second-team All-Pro and was a 1953 and 1957 NFL champion with the Lions. 28-year-old quarterback Bill Munson didn't display much mobility, and Lions quarterbacks had less than 100 net passing yards in 7 of 14 games. Munson played 8 games, started 7, and only threw 1,062 yards with 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He was the Rams' first-round draft pick in 1964, then traded to the Lions on May 1st, 1968. Munson started at quarterback the first 4 weeks of the season, when the Lions won 2 and lost 2 games, then was replaced by Greg Landry, who was the Lions' 1968 first-round draft pick. Nicknamed Gomer by teammates, he threw 10 interceptions with only 4 touchdown passes and 853 passing yards in 10 games played, 7 of them starts. While Landry had a strong arm and was a terrific runner, he was sacked at an alarming rate in 1969. While he didn't play enough to rank as a passing qualifier in any category, his 15.79 sack percentage would have been the worst in the NFL if he had. As it was, Joe Kapp led the NFL with 10.57%. The Lions threw the second least touchdown passes in yards, so this trick play that rookie wide receiver Larry Walton threw to Earl McCulloch helped matters. The Lions' offensive line coach was Chuck Knox, who later as a head coach was nicknamed Ground Chuck for his propensity to run the ball instead of passing it. His offensive line was commanded by center Ed Flanagan, who made the first of 4 Pro Bowl teams for him in 1969. He was tough. He only missed 5 starts in 12 years. In 1969, 6 Lions rushed for over 200 yards, but none ran for at least 400 yards. In 1936, the Lions rushed for a then record 2,885 yards. They ran 591 times and passed only 146 times, which is greater than a 4-to-1 ratio. The 1969 club ran a lot too, but to not nearly the success of their 1936 team. They ran the third most times for the sixth most yards, with the third worst rushing yards per attempt in the NFL. Nick Eddy was third in Heisman Trophy vote in 1966, and he rushed for 272 yards, which was the third most for the Lions in 1969, with a 3.5 yards per carry. Mel Farr was the NFL's 1967 Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he only rushed for 245 yards in 5 games played. In 1968, he only played in 9 games due to a knee injury, and against the Bears in Week 9, 1969, he seriously injured the same knee on this play. He had a fine 1970 season as he bounced back to make the NFC Pro Bowl team. L.T. Taylor was the Lions' second-round draft pick in 1969, and he was second on the team with 348 rushing yards. His 2.9 yards per carry was less than stellar, however. At the end of the 1975 season, he was the Lions' all-time career rushing leader. Bill Triplett was the leading rusher in 1969 with 377 yards, and his 3.4 yards per carry was nothing to write home about. Larry Watkins was an undrafted rookie in 1969 who contributed 87 receiving yards to go along with 201 rushing yards and a low 3.2 yards per carry. Quarterback Greg Landry's 7.4 yards per carry made him a legitimate rushing threat, and he kicked in 243 rushing yards. 2 years later, he broke the single-season rushing yardage record for quarterbacks with 530. Tight end Charlie Sanders made second-team All-Pro in only his second season when his 42 catches led the Lions. He was a receiving acrobat. Other Landry targets were John Wright, whose 12 catches in 1969 were the only ones of his NFL career. Third-round draft pick in 1969 Larry Walton also snatched 12 passes, but he continued his NFL career for 7 more seasons, with 6 of them as a starting wide receiver for the Lions. The Lions' deep threat was former USC track star Earl McCulloch, and he and Charlie Sanders were the only Lions to catch more than 13 passes in 1969. Defense was the name of the game for the 1969 Lions. They dished out 3 shutouts along with games of only 3 and 7 points allowed, along with an assortment of ailments for opposing players like Paul Warfield. Sacking the scrambler, Fran Tarkenton, was no easy task, but the Lions made it look relatively easy. They had the 4th most sacks in the league, and the third least passing yards per game at only 132.9. Against the Bears in Week 5, they held superstar running back Gale Sayers to only 12 yards on 9 carries in a 13-7 Lions win. Future Hall of Fame defensive tackle Alex Karras was nicknamed Spanky, as well as the Mad Duck. In his second-to-last season at age 34, he made second-team All-Pro and finished in 6th place for the NFL's MVP award. Jerry Rush was the Lions' other defensive tackle, and he had a 7-year career-high 6 sacks in 1969. Right defensive end Larry Hant had 6.5 sacks, and he was playing in his 6th of 13 seasons, all with the Lions. Defensive end Joe Robb also played 13 years in the NFL, and he registered 4.5 sacks in 1969. Middle linebacker Mike Lucci was the inspirational leader of the Lions defense, and he made second-team All-Pro in 1969. A Cleveland Browns 5th-round draft pick in 1961 as a future choice, he was traded to the Giants for defensive back Erich Barnes, and then to the Lions, both in 1965, in a package deal for quarterback Earl Morrall. "33-year-old outside linebacker Wayne Walker was as solid as ever in his 12th season with Detroit. He played in 200 games for the Lions over 15 years and is a highly underrated outside linebacker. Third-year outside linebacker Paul Naumoff was a quick, sure tackler. In the secondary, cornerback Lem Barney was one of the best in the business. He made first-team All-Pro for the second consecutive season and the Pro Bowl team for the third straight season. This future Hall of Famer had 8 interceptions and was also a terrific punt returner. Even though he gave up 4 to 5 inches in height, his athleticism and leaping skills allowed him to successfully defend Gary Collins, who made first-team All-Pro in 1969. Barney also punted 66 times in 1969 for a 34.1 average. It was his last season of punting. "11-year veteran cornerback Dick LeBeau was durable and cagey. From 1960 through 1969, he only missed 1 start. At the end of the 1969 season, he was the NFL's active interception leader with 47. He had 62 in his 14-year career. In Week 7 against San Francisco, the Lions won 26-14, despite totaling only 125 net yards of offense. The Lions only had 1 net passing yard. So how did they do it? They did it by creating short fields of play through 3 punt returns for 103 yards and 3 kickoff returns for 117 yards. Against the Bears, Bobby Williams ripped off this 86-yard return. His 33.1 kickoff return average led the NFL, and the Lions' 11.0 punt return average also led the NFL. So how was the Lions' punt return coverage? Errol Mann's 101 points were third best in the league, and his 67.6% connect rate was second best. On Thanksgiving Day at home against the Vikings, the Lions were feasted upon in a 27-0 pasting. Baltimore was the scene of the year's biggest controversy. A Baltimore punt sailed past a fair catch signaling Lions player and touched Larry Walton. The Colts recovered the ball in the end zone, but the referee ruled correctly that there was no Colts touchdown since a muffed punt cannot be advanced. Outraged Colts fans held up the game for 15 minutes. Bill Triplett was sprung for a 22-yard touchdown run. His other 14 carries only netted him 36 yards. The Lions' terrific special teams came into play again when John Wright returned this fumble for a touchdown. The Colts tied the previous year's NFL participant in the NFL/AFL championship game. The playing conditions the following week at home were nasty, and the Lions welcomed their Southern California opponents, the Rams, to highly pleasant sounds and sights. They also served up a menacing brand of defense that only allowed the Rams 4 first downs and 96 total net yards of offense. The Lions' punishing and opportunistic defense caused 3 turnovers in only 33 offensive plays for the Rams. The Lions only averaged 3.2 yards per carry on the day, but L.T. Taylor and Bill Triplett picked up the necessary yardage to convert plays into first downs time after time. Bill Munson hooked up with his favorite target, Charlie Sanders, for 47 yards. Munson also hit Bill Triplett for a 62-yard touchdown. On the day, Munson averaged 24 yards per completion. The Roaring Lions defense was on a roll in the next game, the last one of the season, when they again only allowed 96 total net yards of offense in their dominating 20-3 win against the Bears. The Lions sported a 9-win, 4-loss, 1-tie record despite having the third lowest scoring offense in the NFL. They had the second stingiest defense in points allowed with only 13.4 per game, which allowed for an overall plus 5.1 points per game differential. Their Week 1 stunning loss to the Steelers, their Week 12 tie with the Colts, and their 2 losses to the Vikings by combined scores of 51-10 were the primary factors that kept the Lions from entering the playoffs, along with, of course, without the game-breaking services of running back Mel Farr. If only the Lions' second-to-last rated passing game could have produced more plays like this.